Hey guys, so this is going to be our 525SX JD jetting video. And as you can see, I already have the carb out here on the workbench. So let's take a look. So this is basically what you get when you buy one of these JD kits. There's instructions. You got your famous needles and one needle clip, a red and a blue, as you can see right there. This kit includes this guy, which is a special spacer for the acceleration pump. O-rings for the O-ring mod, which basically is over here. It's going to basically link the accelerator with this right here, so this eliminates this gap right here. And then they include four main jets, I believe 175 to 182. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to remove the accelerator pump cover in order to do the diaphragm modification before I get basically to tuning the actual carburetor. Gotta get this done. So this is going to be 3 of these little hex bolts, and they are 3mm hexes, and you want to make sure you apply a little pressure here because there is a spring under here. And then when you pull it out, you should have an O-ring in here. There's your cover, there's your spring. And then here is the diaphragm that we're talking about, and here's this guy, we're going to be modifying. So you just go ahead and pop off the diaphragm, set it aside, and there's another flat O-ring right here. And, you know, as with anything, it's always good to come in and basically just clean this out real quick, and make sure not to disturb anything. So this right here, this point, comes up through here, through the carburetor, to the accelerator pump. So when you, as you can see, when I spin the throttle, it pushes down on this diaphragm, which in turn basically squirts a little bit of fuel out of the front of the carburetor into the motor. So here's our little spacer. Okay. So what you want to do here is you want to take this is just an 8mm socket. You want to set it on a hard surface. Then you want to set your cover, and you can see right here where the spring seat is. We're going to set that on the socket just to give it a nice firm resting spot. And this is this little cap, and it's actually tapered to center on its own. So what you want to do is you want to set it basically straight on top of that little nub. Then you want to just use a little hammer. This is kind of a big hammer, but you want to use a little hammer to just kind of get that pressed on there. And I'm actually going to step away from the camera here for a second and use a metal surface to do this on. Alright, so there we go. I ended up using just a metal workbench, like a toolbox, to hammer it on to make sure it went on smoothly. There should be a little gap, but you can basically feel all of a sudden it goes and then it's seated. So now all you have to really do is just reassemble this, you know, wipe it down, reassemble it the same way you did before. Another way that you can actually do this is, I double checked it. I have a small arbor press over here, and I basically stuck it in the arbor press and just gently applied pressure to make sure that that was seated all the way. But other than that, you can just reassemble it the same way it was, and you're done with this mod. Okay, and for the O-ring mod, I went ahead and went with the big O-ring, which supposedly provides about 80% more snap in the throttle. Basically, you just take the O-ring and you wrap it over the set screw, and then you just very gently use a small pick, and boom, that's all you want. You just want it to sit right there and hold this black plastic pump piece against it. So now when we crank the throttle, it basically has much more snap back to it, and it'll make sure to apply more pressure on this AP right here. Alright, so let's talk about the JD kit here a little bit. Some of most of the magic that you pay for is these 2 needles, because the tapers on these 2 needles are very specifically engineered. So basically the blue needle is going to be a low altitude cool temperature needle, and the red needle is going to be high altitude high temperature needle. living here in Texas, we're at low altitude, but we're at high temperature. So I'm actually going to run the red needle, which is the high temperature needle, but I'm going to run it just a little bit richer than I would the blue needle. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a 182 main, according to these instructions, and instead of running the blue at a 3, I'm going to run the red needle at number 4. So it's going to be just a little bit richer on the red needle, and that should give me the perfect mixture. So to replace the main jet, you can either remove the fuel bowl as a whole, or you can just remove this drain nut right here. And this drain nut's going to be a 17 millimeter, and it should just come right off like that. And there's your drain O-ring, and there's your main jet. And currently I got a 185 in here, so you need, if I remember correctly, a 6 millimeter. Yeah, there we go. 6 millimeter socket. I also picked up one of these guys from Motion Pro for about $6. Totally worth the money. So, just gonna pop this out real quick, and it might come out with the holder. Ah, good. No, it didn't come out with the holder. So we're gonna set this 185 aside, and we're gonna install this 182. And the only bad thing about doing it like this is it's really hard to basically hand thread. So you basically have to do it like this, and just make sure you're real straight when you screw it in. There should be no resistance at all on this. So there we go, it's nice and tight. And now we can put our drain plug back and tighten it back down a little bit with our wrench. Now if we flip this over to the top, we can remove these caps, which are also 3 millimeter hex. Pull this cap off, then grab our 4 millimeter hex and remove this guy right here, which is the cover for the needle. So do that, drop out the stock needle, there it is, pop in the red needle, and then pop in the cover. And that's pretty much it for the JD kit. The other wisdom about this is you can actually get to this carburetor without removing the carburetor every time, or you can get to the needle without removing the carburetor every time. You just remove the gas tank and then rotate the carburetor, and that lets you get access. If you need to lean it out or whatever, like one clip or something, you don't need to go through all the trouble of removing and reinstalling the carburetor. You can simply get to it while it's on the bike.